Get ready to create the simplest oyster stew ever. With Christmas in July in mind, I'm excited to share our family's recipe that has been a Christmas Eve tradition forever. Have you ever wondered why it's a must-have for the holiday table? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments on what makes it the perfect Christmas Eve meal. Imagine being curled up in your favorite chair with the fireplace burning low, the Christmas tree casting a warm glow, and a hot steaming cup of oyster stew. Now the stew needs nothing more than a few simple crackers. As you sip on your stew, you reflect on the Christmas season and its true meaning. You think about your family, the memories made and the ones to come, just quietly being thankful for your many blessings. What a time of reflection. Hello friends, this is Rhonda and welcome to the Old Tobacco Patch, where I help you bring Southern comfort to your kitchen table. You know, I used to think that I needed 15 ingredients to make a dish tasty, but that's just simply not true. In Southern cooking, simplicity is what truly warms the heart. Here are the ingredients for this simple stew. We're going to use 4 cups of milk, 1 stick of butter, 16 ounces of oysters, and just salt and pepper to taste. Now the first thing I like to do is drain and then sort through my oysters, looking for any shell, crab, anything that shouldn't be in there. And can I say these oysters were huge? They were the size of my hand. I think for this 16-ounce container there was like 5 oysters in it. I added a stick of butter to my pot so it could start melting, and then I went back to my oysters. And I kid you not, I had to cut these things up. They were so big you could have never eaten one in a mouthful. I mean, you had to cut it into bite-sized pieces. Now, to my melted butter, I added my oyster liquor and then my oysters. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that here in the South, we only eat fresh local oysters in a month that has an R in it? Like September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. Does anyone else observe that rule? And why do you think that it is? Leave it in the comments below. Now my hot plate just wasn't heating up like I wanted it to, so I put the pot over here on the stove. Now what I like to do is once I put my oysters in there, I like to get the butter and the oysters good and hot. I want the oysters to cook and kind of curl on the edges if possible. Now my preference is a smaller oyster, but these were huge and I cut them up, but I want them to cook before I start adding my milk. Now once they have curled, I add my milk. And from this point on, I don't want this milk to really boil anymore. I want to bring it up to heat. I want to keep stirring it so that it doesn't stick to the bottom or doesn't scorch in any kind of way. And oh, black pepper. I like plenty of black pepper. And my family always put plenty of black pepper in their oyster stew. Now, don't leave it. Just keep gently stirring it so that it doesn't boil, doesn't scorch, doesn't stick. Now, do you know what makes this stew next level? It's the simplicity. Let the oysters be the star of the show. Don't cover up the flavor with extra ingredients. It's just simple and delicious. Now, I come from a family of gatherers. The men would often gather at the river or under a shelter out back even, sharing stories and tales, mostly about hunting and fishing. But there would always be something cooking. And if the weather was cold enough, they would be roasting oysters, which then would in turn lead to making oyster stew. And it would be a recipe that is just this simple. Now I keep it stirring until I see it start to bubble just a little bit around the edges. Then I take and I check my temperature, and if it's somewhere between 180, 200, I'm good with that temperature. And also I take a spoon and I taste it for saltiness. You know, butter has salt, the oysters are briny, but if it needs a little salt, I put it in there, and if it needs a little more pepper, I add some more.
I know that's something you can't have when you're dieting, but that's good.
Okay, the stew is ready, and I'm ready for lunch, and it smells delicious. I'm going to grab me a few crackers and sit down and have a bite. Now, I encourage you to try this simple oyster stew recipe this Christmas Eve. It's a dish that brings warmth and comfort to this special holiday season. And remember, sometimes it's just the simple Southern food that truly warms the heart. Thank you for joining me in the kitchen today as I took a moment to reflect on Christmas and the memories that go along with it. I appreciate you all and look forward to seeing and hearing from you in the next video. Talk to you later.